tough mission, but I think you're ready.
If we're gonna save the colonies, we're gonna need Gundam.
Welcome back to Gundam at MAHQ. Gundam is actually celebrating an anniversary today. We're actually celebrating the 10th anniversary.
How do we make
This
it?
is episode 10. And this is probably going to be one of the more responsive episodes from our listeners. Today's topics include a guest from the Gundam forum, or actually from the Mecha Talk forums.
That would be our friend.
Under the name of Destiny Gundam.
His name is Peter Laliberte.
Okay.
From the Great White North.
And he's going to be covering with us the Super Robot Wars original generation, both the anime show and some of the games and how they tie in. And finally, we're just going to be doing two topics this show. And the last topic we'll be covering kind of our comparison, thoughts, similarities, influences on three probably the most popular science fiction franchises out there in Star Wars, Star Trek, and Mobile Suit Gundam. So, but before we do that, like always, my news.
Neo's news. Breaking.
Yes, breaking. Destination Tokyo.
Don't cut yourself.
But sorry. But sorry, folks. In joke on that one. But keep tuned to the Gundam because it might come to fruition one of these days.
Wait, no introductions, man?
Oh, I'm sorry. As always,
Sobro Ryu, baby.
I am joined by
Sobro Ryu. That's me right here.
and podcasting live from South Florida.
Good old Chris.
There you go. And I'm Neil Lornock, everyone. Sorry about that. I thought they would know us by now. But
nobody knows who I am.
Oh, no. But yeah,
I'm gonna cry.
Guys, so some quick news today. This is actually pretty good game news that we have, and like always, all my news is courtesy of Ganada. And the first one is about GameStar posted some details about. I guess there's a new game that's coming out for the PS2 in Japan, and it's called the Battle of Sunrise. It's a simulation RPG, and it's basically has all the Sunrise heroes, and it's going to be released on April 10th in Japan, and it's going to feature about 200 mecha and characters from 8 Sunrise animes.
Man.
And those shows include Mobile Suit Gundam, Char's Counterattack, Panzer World Gauntlet, Metal Armor Dragnar, Armor Troopers Photomes.
Yay!
That is a Gundam favorite. And SPT Leisner. And another great show, King of Braves Go Gaigar.
Brace yourselves.
Yay! And Zentai Muteki Raijino. And Round Vernon Vifen.
Kinda, yeah.
And yeah. And I guess on the GameStar's website, there's going to be some features on some of the special moves that they have, some of the hidden elements with some of the storylines, characters in Mecha, and some things dealing with the original characters in Mecha and other RPGs. Pre-orders of the Battle of Sunrise include a visual file, 9 visual sheets featuring the main mecha drawn by Gundam Seed's chief mecha animation director. Chris, what would this be?
Satoshi Shigeta.
Famitsu says that the game is about 70% complete, so if this is like Street Fighter, it's probably already complete.
Oh, you're funny.
Because everybody always lies about how complete these games are.
Yeah, Capcom says
I got a news item for you. I know we weren't going to mention it, but I figured we should probably mention it just this time.
What's that?
The news from GameSpot Japan that Giren's Greed Menace of Axis was the number 2 game with 123,000 copies sold.
Could it be us?
I personally think that is all due to you, sir.
Yeah,
that is all due to you.
Well, thank you. I will be expecting that check in the mail from Bandai Namco, and
free copies for everybody
this week,
or the Char custom PSP,
or even the Char cell phone, or actually just give
maybe a trip to the Char Day Spa.
I forgot about that.
How could anyone ever forget about the Char Day Spa?
I forgot about that.
I had no idea that existed.
I hope I hope we get some credit on there because we did talk about it more than anything. But
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, everyone, we say that's firmly tongue-in-cheek. We don't actually think that we were responsible for any sales of this game.
I doubt
Maybe
it.
one or two.
We were
Yeah.
responsible for the one person that imported it.
Yeah,
That's right.
The 3 people that
PlayAsia.
the 3 people that imported it from PlayAsia.
Probably playing it right now as he listens to us.
But there's some 00 news, like always, since 00 is the current show, and we're always excited about 00 news. The Gundam 00 official site put up some pics of the FG0 Gundam in its products section, and also on the Bandai Hobby 00 Gunpla site, there's some extra randomly chosen people will receive the Zero Get campaign, and it'll be revealed in a big announcement on March 7th. So I don't really know the details too much about that, but I'm sure if you go to the Bandai Hobby Gunpla site, you'll be able to find more details about that. And also in 00 news, the 00 DS official site updated its privilege page with pics of the Gundam Exia rollout color version, both in a Gunpla and in the line art. There's also some more screenshots that are available to be viewed on Dengeki Online and Game Watch. The Gunpla's Navi mode comes with the Gunpla catalog and 4 lessons. 1 is assembling the FG Gundam Exia. 2 is simple detailing and Gundam markers. 3 is assembling the 1/100 Gundam Exia. And 4 is methods of painting and Pla model custom painting tools. So
I think this is a pretty neat feature for
Anybody-
a game. Obviously, it's advertising
Yeah.
for buying all that junk, but that's kind of a neat unlockable that you play this game and you unlock tips on how to build model kits. So
yeah, it is pretty cool, and I do encourage people to go to these websites to view the screenshots. I checked them out before when I was getting all this stuff, and the game looks great. Like I've said before, these DS games just keep getting better and better looking, and it looks like a pretty fun game. So anybody that's enjoying 00, definitely pick that up. And like we said before, all DS games, if they're Japanese games, so you'll be able to play it here in America. You just may
Man.
have to go through a lot of Japanese menus. So.
I should have played that game. I just built 2 Gunpla from 00 this week.
So.
At work, bored as all get out.
But some other Gundam news. Of course, what would there be a week in Japan without a Gundam festival? I don't think so. But the amusement park Greenland is going to be holding Gundam World 2008 from March 15th to June 29th. Wow, imagine this. Featured is an exhibit devoted to Char Aznavour. Oh
I bought my ticket.
I can't believe they would even talk about that guy. It seems like he's one of the least favorite characters. But
who is that guy? Wasn't he like in Gundam Wing or something?
no, that's low rent Char.
Low rent Char.
This is Char Aznavour.
Budget Char.
Budget Char. But anybody that's going to be in, I guess, in Japan during those dates, definitely go check that out. So, and they're also going to have a premiere of a large Gundam 00 diorama.
That's
So
awesome.
That'll be kind of cool. But and last few little things here. The Gigazine posted some pics and 4 YouTube videos of the Gundam vs. Gundam at the AOU Amusement Expo,
I really want that
2008.
Mm-hmm.
That's the arcade game, right, Soul Bro?
Yeah, the new one that's coming out from Capcom.
So
and,
that'll
Bandai.
definitely, if you want to check that out, definitely go to those sites and see what's going on, see what all the hubbub's about on that game.
Oh man.
And finally, the Gundam Unicorn official site had some updates, and on the official site they posted a summary for the Palu Capture Battle 2, a mini event report of recent signing appearances by author Fuku, is that how you say that? Fukui?
Yeah.
And a profile of the RGM-89S Stark Jigen.
The Jigen, man.
So I guess that's what, is that built by Stark Industries, that one? Not Anaheim?
Slipping in that Iron Man reference.
Oh.
And
that was well done. That was worthy of me.
and
Thank you.
the translation by Mark Simmons is at Mecha Talk. So
Oh man, Mark.
What's Mecha Talk?
I don't know. I think it's just this is a place where people just complain about things.
Oh no.
Just kidding, folks.
man.
Just kidding. But
Man, now they're all going to be leaving in droves. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Way to go,
no.
guy.
No, it's a
Way to
great
go.
place to go, and we always encourage everybody to go there. because Gundam's not the only thing you can talk about on forums there. But like always, that's the end of the news, and we'll be back in a little bit with our first topic, which will be the Super Robot Wars original generation. You're listening to Gundam at MAHQ.
This isn't the biggest bag over the head punch in the face I ever got.
Gundam it! Son.
暗闇から聞こえる君の声の中にたった一つ見つけた真実
Hey everybody, welcome back to Gundam at MAHQ. This time we're going to be starting off our first discussion of Super Robot Wars. It's been requested by fans, and to join us in this discussion we've got Peter Laliberte, who is reviewing Super Robot Wars and writing profiles for the series. You also know him on the forums as Destiny Gundam, so say hello, Peter.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
What's up?
Just know my last name is Laliberte. Not whatever you said it. Everybody pronounces it wrong.
Well, La Liberty, you said?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to.
It's supposed to be French, but we're not French, so we just use an Anglified version of it.
Oh hell, you're just Destiny Gundam to me.
That works too.
It's probably easier.
Whatever. So this time we're going to start off by focusing on original generation. So for those who really aren't familiar with Super Robot Wars, briefly it started off back in 1991 as a strategy RPG series, sort of like a mashup of Gundam and Macross and all these other robot franchises. But pretty much since the beginning they've been creating original characters in Mecha, which are so creatively named the Banpresto Originals.
Mm-hmm.
And they started making games that just had original characters, and one of the more well-known ones is the original generation series, which had a couple of sequels and remakes and its own anime. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So since you reviewed most of the TV anime Divine Wars, Peter, give us a brief rundown about the show and your thoughts on it and how it differs from original Generation 1, the game that it's based on.
Okay, well, the basic plot premise is that it's the space era, where it's normally they tend to change their calendars whenever they move into space, and they have space colonies and all that stuff, but generally they haven't advanced that much because they got slammed with two meteors in the past. One hit New York and the other hit Moscow, I believe it was.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more technically declined than what they normally should have been.
Right.
But then a third meteor comes and hits on this island called Iodinius Island, and it's in the Marquise Island. I'm not quite sure where that is. Anyways, the weird thing about that meteor is that it actually slowed down before it hit us, so it wasn't that damaging.
Right.
And they studied it, and they found that it was actually artificial, and that it had what they call extra over technology, which is highly alien technology, way beyond anything that we could ever make ourselves.
Kind of like over technology from Macross.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same basic premise, except it's a meteorite instead of a spaceship.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So they infer from there that they got giant robots, so we should probably be making our own giant robots to counter them. So that's what we do, and the personal trooper, or PTs as they're called, is what resulted in that. That's their giant robots there. And the first one was the Gespenst, which is German for ghost. And
Right.
so they're developing all this stuff, and the story kicks off with Ryusei Dat. He's a Japanese guy, and he's a huge super robot fanboy. So robots are his life, or as he says, robots are a man's passion.
Heck yeah.
That's the line he constantly says.
Yeah.
Hey, it works for me.
I concur.
So he entered this tournament called Burning PT, which is like a mech simulator that you play in an arcade and tournaments and stuff. So him and his friend Kusa Mizuha, who's his classmate there, they go to this tournament where Ryusei gets into the finals.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more or less like the first major change there is that there's this other guy named Tenzin Nakajima,
Right.
who's also this big
Biggest
hardcore
dick
gamer.
of them all.
Yeah,
I hate that guy's such a dick.
Oh man.
He's pretty. So
No, seriously, because That guy Tenzin, he's like that guy that you're playing, like, say Call of Duty 4 with or something else. It's like he like snipes you from behind, and then like he comes and like teabags your dead body while you're respawning.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, haha, I pwned you. He's that kind of guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of guy.
That's
We
a
all
new
hate
level
that
of
guy.
hate, man. He's the Biff to the main character's Marty McFly. Nice.
You used
nice.
the Back to the Future reference.
Hey, man, that's how nerdy I am.
That's funny. Biff Tannen.
So anyway, in the anime, Tenzin was actually at the tournament, and he kicked Ryusei's ass in the finals. But in the original Game Boy Advance game, he didn't show up, so Ryusei won. So this was changed in Original Generations, which is the PS2 remake. They added Tenzin in there, so canonically now, Tenzin did kick Ryusei's ass in the finals there. And so Ryusei takes that pretty hard because it was going to be his last big tournament there because his mother is hospitalized, so he needed to focus on paying her bills. So earlier they had visited her, and he said he wasn't going to go to college, but she kind of talked him out of it and told him that he should worry about his own future and do what he can do. So anyway, so Ryusei's pretty bummed there, but he has, like, Kusa's there with him, and all of a sudden, big explosion happens, and this giant robotic bug crashes into the stadium. And so while they're running for their lives, as most people would do, Kusa gets trapped under some rubble. So he tries to help her, but she tells him, like, to go on and whatnot. But luckily, or unluckily, whichever way you look at it, Ryusei was being monitored by this guy named Ingram Pliskin and his subordinate there, Aya Kobayashi. And Ingram has a Gespenst Mark II type PT sent out for Ryusei to pilot, just to test him because he has, like, psychic powers. Not unlike new types, but it's more on a, this is just some special abilities some people have and nothing more than that. So the type PT, which stands for T-Link type, I think, or something like that. T-Link is their, like, Psycommu system.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. That definitely makes sense.
Yeah, so Ryusei gets into the Gespenst there, and he fights the bugs, but he manages to destroy one, but the rest swarm him, and he kind of can't handle it because he's just some kid who got thrown into a giant robot.
Oh my gosh.
Where have I heard that one before?
That's a new twist.
So coincidentally, the cockpit system of the Gespenst is exactly the same as it is for the video game that he was playing. So
Where have I heard that one before, too?
No way.
Sweet.
Oh my god. I've never heard that before. Were the keys left in the mech too?
No, there wasn't any keys, but yeah, he just kind of activated it like he did in the game. So he's like, oh, hey, it's just like the game.
I wonder.
Push button start.
Wait, is the game a training simulator for the real thing? Ho ho ho!
Gee, I wonder.
Well, hello, Macross Frontier.
At least it's got a better name than Hard On.
Ouch. Ouch.
Another thing that I thought was interesting was that when Ryusei first gets into the Gespenst, like, the bug slams into him and, like, takes him up into the air and drops him into the ground, and he actually, like, pukes all over his cockpit.
Oh,
Great.
Now that is new.
I forgot about that.
So, like, he's not in the pilot suit or anything, so the G-forces are bound to get some sort of reaction like that out of him. So anyways, he gets surrounded, and that's when the first episode ends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next episode, he gets bailed out by this experienced pilot guy named Kai Kitamura and his Gespenst troops, and they take out the bugs. But Ryusei manages to use a T-Link Ripper, which is pretty much this psychically guided buzzsaw that you fire out and cut stuff up. So he managed to do that, and, like, everybody's surprised, like, oh, he managed to do that on his first try? Kind of thing. So afterwards, he gets arrested for using military hardware without, like, being a civilian, right? So he's given an ultimatum to either, like, go to jail or join the military. So kind of no-brainer here, he joins the military, but he makes it so the stipulations that the military will pay all his mother's hospital bills.
That's cool.
So he at least gets something out of it. And it's not really like he's against the idea, right? Piloting a giant robot. So that kicks things off, and so you see him, like, training to become a better pilot, but he's hot-headed, so he runs out and he gets his ass kicked by a bunch of tanks.
Wait, tanks?
Yeah, tanks.
Hot blood only works so far.
Oh, snap. he's got a long way to go then.
Yeah. So he just rushed in, but the tanks had, like, better strategy and stuff, so Easy got his ass whooped. And then afterwards he gets like beat up by some of the tank's pilots.
Insult to injury.
Yeah, but his other teammate, varieties Brainstein, some German name like that.
Brainstein?
Brandstein or something like that.
First there's Pliskin, Brainstein, and Pliskin, man. Pliskin. I held my tongue on Pliskin.
Yeah. Is there a box?
Now that's a cool ass last name.
Is there a box around?
But Brainstein, I gotta watch the show. I really do though. I've been seeing it up for a long time, and
I saw the first.
Do you have like $40 or $50 to spare per volume?
No.
Like you, Chris, I will wait for the bargain bin.
Yeah.
I'll wait for the Amazon blowout or the blowout at Right Stuff.
It was online, but I don't think I saw it anymore.
It stopped at episode 20. But
Yes. That's just what I heard.
But we support the real versions of products here, so
Right.
And I mean that seriously. Yes, Peter, for the record, is actually buying the DVDs.
Yes, I am. But I'm not stupid enough to buy them at full price. I'm getting bargains. Like if you pre-order stuff from Right Stuff, you get like $12 off. So
Well played, Canadian. Well played.
yeah, our money's worth more than yours is too. So.
That's a nice jab. I will think of a counter someday.
Anyway, back to
Back on topic here. So Rai, he's he's pretty young, but he's experienced, and his family is a prestigious military family. So he's got a lot going up behind him. Like, so he's the one that usually tells Ryusei he's being an idiot and he's gonna get himself killed, and generally being a jerk to him, but kind of rightfully so.
Yeah, Ryusei really was a jerk at the beginning.
Yeah.
He didn't get it.
So is he more of a real robot pilot, while the main character is a super robot pilot?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have Aya in there too. She's the standard hot and busty commanding officer there.
Nice.
That's a new twist.
She's a really nice lady though. So.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of funny because when Rai was introduced, Ryusei goes, "Oh, now we got the woman, and now we got the cool playboy type." how cliche is that? And the other two didn't know what he was talking about.
Not at all.
So anyways, the three of them are put into a team called the SRX team, and Ryusei wonders what that stands for, but they say, "Oh, you'll figure it out later."
Well, since we've gone into the anime a little bit, how about the games? From your impressions of playing the games, which one do you think is the best? The one you've had the most fun playing in the series?
I played Original Generation 1 and Original Generation 2. The Atlas released them in English over here on the Game Boy Advance, so I played those two.
Right.
And of the two, OG2 is by far superior in every single aspect to OG1. Better graphics, better storylines, better mechs, better characters.
Right.
It's like OG1 had all, like, it was pretty awesome too, but like OG2 just added so much onto it and made it so much better.
Wow. Is it a direct continuation of part one?
There's
or is it kind of
6 months
generational?
between
It is? Okay,
OG1
cool.
and OG2.
So you get to see a lot of the same faces from 1 to 2.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Divine Crusaders are this group formed from the EOTI, which is the Extra Over Technology Investigation Institute. They're like the foremost, like they know most of what there is to know about the Extra Over Technology than anybody else. They started a rebellion against the Earth Federation there. And it's because in Antarctica, the Earth Federation had a meeting with the Arrogators, or rather, they weren't the Arrogators, they were the guests, as they made sure to point out that they were called. And it turns out that they were actually, it was under the guise of peace talks, but it was actually the Earth Federation higher-ups trying to sell out the human race so they would save their own hides when the aliens invaded.
Oh, wow.
Bien Zoldark, the leader of the Divine Crusaders, he's like, "Nuh-uh, not gonna let that happen." So he has one of his right-hand men, Shu Shirakawa, who's like the awesome. I have so much respect for that guy. He has this mech called the Grandon, which is like super powerful, like hucks black holes at people and stuff like that.
Super powerful.
It's got an AI that can handle like over 60,000 enemies at once or something like that.
What?
And Shu built the entire thing pretty much by himself and used like 3/4 of the Divine Crusaders budget to make it.
Oh, nice.
Oh my god.
So anyways, he was there in Antarctica and he attacked the alien ship and caused everybody to get into this fight and like pretty much kicked everybody's ass from like the guests to the Earth Federation, and he handily took out Rai, Aya, and Ryusei pretty much at the same time. But then the first Banpresto original ever, who is Masaki Ando, and his robot called Cybuster show up and stop Shu because he's got a personal vendetta against him. So they clash for a bit, but Shu just kind of smirks at him and is like, okay, I've had enough fun here, and he just leaves.
Right.
So that starts the Divine Crusader War, which is where they get the Divine Wars from.
Right. Well, wait a minute. The Lord of Elemental, does that have any role in Super Robot Wars OG at all?
Yeah, Cybuster is from the Lore of Elemental.
Okay.
So is Shu. But so far, those are the only two who have that are related to that storyline.
Okay, cool.
Well, there's Loon Zoldak too, but she first showed up in Super Robot Wars 3, so not in the Lore of Elemental games.
Because in one of the SRW games, I remember Lord of Elemental was in it, and I didn't realize it was a Banpresto original. I always thought it was an actual. I thought it was a show, but it was the original for Banpresto, and it became a show afterwards.
Yeah, it became a show afterwards, which I also reviewed.
Right.
Anyway, so Bien, he doesn't like how he loves the Earth, so he didn't approve of the idea of selling it out to save somebody's hide. So he basically started a war to overthrow the corrupt Federation government there and protect the world from the Arrogators. So they have this mass-produced mecha called the Lion, and it can fly on its own in the atmosphere. It's low cost. It's got high maneuverability. It's
Right.
pretty much really. It's rather balanced and
Better than the Gespens, because the armor modules are all very advanced and very powerful compared to the personal troopers.
I see.
Okay.
right because they're made by the people who understand this alien technology the best, right? So
Yeah.
and the Gespens themselves never saw that much mass production, so there's not that many around.
Right.
So anyway, so they get swarmed by the Lions, and pretty much they're losing one base after another. So the only thing they can do is they got this super powerful battleship called the Hagane, which is a Space Noah class ship. And so they send that out to strike DC's headquarters on Idanius Island there. So Ryusei joins that ship there, and they head out.
Right.
So here's where another major change from the game comes, is that before they reach Idanius Island, they go up into space to help out the ATX team, which is the other main characters, and their battleship, the Huru Custom. And they're fighting the United Colony Corps, which is the colony military, and they're backing up the DC.
Oh, wow.
And the leader of that is actually Rai's father, and his brother's also fighting with them.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so Rai's not too fond of his father or his brother, because
Okay.
Family ties being broken.
this is explained more in OG2, but Elzem was forced to kill his own wife to save a colony from being gassed.
Wow.
And Rai kind of had like a boyish crush on his sister-in-law, so he never forgave his brother for killing her.
Wow, that's pretty deep right there.
Yeah. So the SRX team and the ATX team hook up. In the game, though, this came after the Divine War, because it actually started out with the R1, which is Ryusei's like upgraded his main mech that he's test piloting, versus the Alt Aizen, which is Kyosuke Nambu, who's the other main character, his mech, which is this big bulky red thing that can barely stand on its own.
But it has lots of cool weapons.
Yeah, it's got lots of cool weapons, and Kyosuke's just that badass that he can pilot this thing and nobody else can.
Right.
So anyways, they actually fought in the game, and depending on whoever route you took, because at the beginning of the game you can choose to be Kyosuke or Ryusei.
And the story's very different between the two of them, at least in the beginning.
The first half is the stories are the same, but it's just that they're running parallel to each other within the same timeline. So like while Ryusei's off on the Hagane, Kyosuke's off on the Kai, and that they both coexist in the same universe. Like they don't overlap and they don't retcon each other at all. It's just later in the game there are some differences. Anyway, so in the anime there they hook up and they take out the United Colony Corps while they're entering the atmosphere. And they also fight Zanger Zombolt, who's a fan favorite here. He was actually Kyosuke's team leader, but he defected to the Divine Crusaders.
And he carries a big-ass sword.
Oh.
Yeah, he has a big-ass sword, and his trademark is, "My name is Zanger Zombolt. I'm the sword that cleaves evil."
All right.
Nice.
Sure enough, he cleaves things all right. So when they fight him in the game, that was a big thing where he was a traitor, and everybody's all like, "Oh no, how dare you betray us," and stuff like that. And so after Rai's dad gets killed, the two ships go down to Earth to, or no, just the Hagane does, but the Hiru gives it all of its mechs to beforehand. So they go to Idanius, and they face off against Bien in his Valzion, which is the DC ultimate weapon. Though it's probably
giant nasty thing.
yeah, though it's probably weaker than the Granzon, but it's still pretty powerful. He takes out some of them, though he doesn't actually kill them. It's just the one guy. His name's Brooklyn Luxfield, so everybody calls him Bullet.
Brooklyn.
Top of the food chain.
So he kind of charged in with his Gespenst against this huge-ass Valzion here, and he just gets blasted away like it was nothing. Though his mech was just trash, but he was fine. He was in the hospital for the next few episodes. But so they basically can't touch him because he has this barrier on him. But
Right.
Ingram there, he's the leader, so he comes out with this strategy that's pretty reckless. But as he said, the possibility isn't zero. So they all combine and they break through the barrier, and then Misaki gets a killing blow in with his Psybuster, and that's the end of Bien there.
After he gives his special speech, though, before dying.
Yeah, he walks off into the sunset as he recites this poem.
And then he blows up.
Nice.
Then he blows up. But Bien was really a great man, though, because one of his goals was actually, it was either the Divine Crusaders would win and take over and they'd be able to defend Earth from the aliens, or the Divine Wars would make the Earth Federation realize that they're being stupid and they have to, it kind of got them ready for the impending alien invasion. So Bien just wanted to save the Earth even if he had to become evil to do so. So it's a personal sacrifice on his part, and I can't help but respect the guy for that.
So he's justified in what he did.
That's true.
Let's quickly wrap up the Irrigator so that we can get to the OAV.
All right.
Well, after Bien was died, he had this Adler guy who was being an asshole, so they killed him later. But the Irrigators, they show up on Earth with this giant planetoid called Nevim, or Nevim, or however you pronounce it. And they're there and they start abducting people, like soldiers mostly, or entirely. So, and then Ingram betrays everybody. It turns out that he was an Irrigator spy all along, and he was manipulating everybody to make them good samples. So he basically wanted to abduct everybody, brainwash them, and turn them into Irrigator soldiers. So he betrays them. He shoots down Aya there, who had a crush on him. So she was pretty hard hit by that. And then he kidnaps Kusaha, who became a mech pilot because she also has some psychic powers. And so they were all pretty bummed after that. But then the SRX team was put under investigation because, your leader guy was a traitor, so we have to investigate you, make sure you aren't going to turn code on us at any time. And at that point, they all had their R-series machines. Ryusei has the R1, Rai has the R2, and Aya has the R3. And they all combined into one giant robot called the SRX, or Super Robot X. But the one time they tried it, they failed. They couldn't combine properly, and that's when Ingram betrayed them.
Oh, man.
So here's where it also differs from the game, is that the game, the Irrigator conflict, was far more drawn out, and Tenzin, who was killed at end of the Divine Crusaders War, he actually came back originally as an Irrigator puppet called Gaza Hagigner or something like that, so you get to kill him again. So it's basically just kind of filler stuff where it's just your ships are going around and then you get attacked by Irrigators and then you beat them and then you just go on to the next mission kind of thing. Because originally they gave Earth 30 days to surrender to them, and they're all like, oh, why are they giving us 30 days? It's almost like they want us to mount a counterattack against them. So the anime just jumps into Operation SRW. Ryusei wonders what that means.
And the answer is?
Excellent thinks it's sexy romance weapon. Okay. So she's the goofball, so she's always cracking jokes. So she suggests that SRW means sexy romance weapon. Both what? Does it seduce the enemy? No, they don't actually outright say it, but it's clear that it stands for Super Robot Wars. Ryusei actually says that, isn't it obvious it means Super Robot Wars? And everybody's like, that's just stupid.
I'm glad they break the fourth wall in that show.
This is known as the L5 campaign because Nevim showed up at Lagrange Point 5. So they go and they attack, and this leads into episode 25 of the anime, which was just wall-to-wall awesomeness in every facet. And so they're basically just all the Earth's forces combined together fighting these aliens who have their bugs, and they also have their humanoid mecha and stuff like that. Ingram shows up. He's in the R-gun, which is another one of the R-series that turns into a giant gun. And
the nice name, Metal Genocider.
Yeah.
when it's in gun mode. That's a great name. So since we're almost at the end of Divine Wars, tell us about the Die SRX, because that was like big news when it came out, and that's another big difference from the game.
Yeah, it's for anybody who's played Alpha 3, they are familiar with it. They know who Cobra Gordon is, and he's this clone of Ingram from an alternate dimension.
Right.
And he's known as the Time Diver, which is somebody who hops around from world to world and just makes sure everything's going properly. Like, make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be and make sure events that are supposed to happen.
Right.
So when they defeat Ingram, who had this upgraded Argon Rival, who was this evil-looking mech there, and they beat him, and the SRX got pretty trashed in the fight. And then against Judecca, which is like the main, it was the core of Nevine, which was piloted by this chick named Levi Tolar, who was actually Mai Kobayashi and is Aya's sister. But she was kidnapped by Ingram a while ago and brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And so after her Judecca is defeated, this failsafe device kicks in Meteor 3, you know, the thing where they got all their technology from. It actually rises off of Earth and goes into space, and it gets all these huge crystals growing out of it and everything.
What?
And it turns out it's this thing called Septuagint. I can't really pronounce it, but it's basically if the Arrogators, or the Balmany Empire as they're actually called, they go around from planet to planet and they cultivate soldiers from the planet, pretty much. Like, they send them technology, have them create it, and then they swoop in and then they steal everything and then use them as their own army. But if a species kind of defeats them,
Right.
just so they have the failsafe device, the Septuagint, who will wipe out the entire race. So it turns out it's piloted by this guy called Yusuf Gozo, who's like created Ingram, because Ingram's like a clone or something like that. There's lots of genetic engineering going on.
Right.
Anyway, so he's pretty much destroying everything, and he has the SRX trapped in it because it fell into the atmosphere, but he picked it up. So they can't do anything, but then Cobra shows up, and he tells Ingram like to get it together and stuff, and so he gives power to the SRX. A Stranagan is, if you watch episode 1, you see it and the Dis Stranagan fighting each other. They're like the shadowed out mechs. So Stranagan shows up, breaks through Septuagint, tosses the SRX out, and then Cobra talks to Ryusei and says, "Oh, you guys can beat him, but you need my help here, and so I'm going to give you my power." And then the SRX transforms into the Die SRX, which is a merger of the SRX and the Dis Stranagan. So it uses this ultimate attack there called Einsolf R, and blows up Septuagint, and everybody else kind of chucks in and tosses, like fires at it, and big explosion, and SRX reverts to normal, and happy end.
Well, it sounds like a wild roller coaster ride, man.
Yeah, it does.
There was a DVD-only epilogue episode, but we don't really have time to talk about that. Overall, since I didn't finish watching Divine Wars, how do you think it fares as an adaptation of OG1?
Well, I know a lot of people have problems with it for numerous reasons. Like, the CG isn't that great, though I find it tolerable. And sometimes the animation has some pretty bad quality to it. So again, I don't really notice that kind of stuff. So a lot of people don't like it, but more people became accepting of it once it got going and it got into more of the major events. And so overall, like, I really liked it. I mean, I'm buying the damn thing. So I better have liked it.
I'd hope so.
But it might not be like stellar. It might not be like a masterpiece. It might not be talked about for years to come, but it's enjoyable, which is the reason I watch this kind of stuff, is just to enjoy myself. I don't need to see something deep or whatever, and if I don't enjoy it, then it's kind of lost on me. So overall, it was a lot of fun, especially some more like break episodes where they focus more on comedy. And that's one of the great things about the game, too, is just that, like, instead of reading through boring stories between each mission, it's just a fun ride, and they crack jokes all over the place and lots of in-jokes. And
especially with Excellent.
Yeah, Excellent's real card. She's cracking jokes all like every scene she's in, and she's always messing up Japanese idioms and stuff like that.
Personally, from what I saw of Divine Wars, yeah, the CG's not that great. I think it gets a lot better in the second half, like when they start heating up the war with the Divine Crusaders, and the animation does get better on. It does have some major lapses in quality at the beginning. It's pretty inconsistent. I always think about from way back in episode 2, like the buffed up muscular Ryusei. Like he instantly, like they show him without he's in a sleeveless shirt and he's got these like massive muscles. It's like, wait a second, where the hell did this come from? I also think, from what I've seen of the games, it may be a lot to cram into just 26 episodes, but I think they do a pretty good job of hitting the major points. So to wrap this up quickly, let's hit up the OAV, which actually was produced before the TV show and is set after Original Generation 2. Basically, it's sort of this guy who was pissed off that he lost his family during the war, and he has this mecha called the Bartol that is like the new unmanned mecha, but of course it goes crazy and there's a whole war, and these Bartols they have like zombie pilots in them, and his idea is to like merge humanity's consciousness all together like Ava, some sort of crazy thing like that. Briefly, I know you really like the series, Peter, so what are your thoughts on the OAV?
The OAV was actually packaged with the pre-order of the Japanese version of OG2.
Yeah.
So when you got the game, it came with the first episode. This was my first exposure to Super Robot Wars. I'd kind of heard about it beforehand. I knew it was like a mesh of a bunch of robot shows together and stuff. So when I was first watching the episode, I was like, when's Amuro going to show up? But so even though I didn't have any idea of the backstories or anything, like the robots looked cool. It's like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I watched it, and I enjoyed it. It was just robots kicking some ass. And
yeah, it was also my first exposure to Super Robot Wars, and I enjoyed it too. A lot of people say like, oh, if you don't play the game, you don't understand anything, and that's probably true, but I hadn't even started playing the games yet when I saw the OAV, and I didn't really have much trouble following the story. Yeah, there's a lot of characters, and only, and some of them like Zanger and Elzum, they only get like brief cameos, but you get a basic idea for how things go, and you can follow it. You may not understand every detail, but I think it's enjoyable even if you've not had any prior exposure to the games. Now, how does it... I know they retconned some parts of the OAV when they released Original Generations on the PS2, so what did they do there?
The basic story is more or less the same, where you got Jurgen there, and he wants to make it so humanity's all one thing, and then the Bartels are flying around and protecting us from whatever aliens come around. And so they added a lot more stuff, like this mech called the Moronga, which is the prototype of the Bartol. Mm-hmm. And so those are flying around too, so it's not just the Bartol. And pretty much the same thing, like Lamia gets captured, and so do the school kids, and then they go to Hellgate to fight them, and they save them, get them back and stuff, and you got more of your mechs there instead of just the ones that show up in the OVA instead. But
Right.
the major things came at the end there, where instead of piloting a crystal see-through version of the Bartol, Jurgen's actually piloting this mech called the Valzion Custom Type CF, which is a mass-produced Valzion. And although that particular model wasn't mass-produced, it was supposed to be. Anyways, in the OVA, Kyosuke saves Lamia, and she gets taken back to the Agane, but in the game, Jurgen shows up and blasts her out of the Altaisen's hand when he was holding her.
Ooh.
So she's presumed dead. She was written off as MIA. And then after you reduce Jurgen's HP down, this event happens where Duminus, which is the main villain of Super Robot Wars R, she shows up, and then she kills him instead, because apparently she was helping him out, but she's like, you served your purpose, I don't need you anymore. So she kills him, and then the Shura, which are this race of, think of them kind of like the Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z, where they just kind of show up, and they like fighting people and stuff with their robots. So the Shura show up, and then you have the R villains and the R protagonists, and that leads in the Original Generations Gaiden, which incorporates 2.5, which is what the OVA was. So that's in there, and then you have, and it goes on, and you fight Duminus and the Shura, and then you get her to come to your side, and then Dark Brain, which is the pure, unadulterated evil, shows up, and he's the second final boss, and then Shu shows up at the end, and he's he transforms into Neo Granzon, which is more powerful Granzon, then you fight him and then end up killing him. And so that's original Generations Gaiden, which was released not too long ago.
Yeah, and then finally to wrap this up, we got coming out pretty soon on the DS this new game, SRW OG Saga, Endless Frontier. So that's something to look forward to in this franchise. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. Peter, any closing thoughts on the anime or the games franchise as a whole?
Just great stuff. I mean, you appreciate it more if you're into the whole giant robot genre, and then you'll get a lot more of the in-jokes.
Right.
Like there was this one hilarious one in OG2 where they almost said Red Comet, but like, hey, you're going to get us in trouble.
That's funny.
Yes, I've seen that one. Speaking of OG2, would you be looking forward to if they ever did an anime adaptation of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. As I said, OG2 is better than OG1 in every single facet, especially the story. But I don't think they would never be able to fit it in 26 episodes, because whereas OG1 you just have the Divine Wars and then the Arrogators, in OG2 you have the new Divine Crusaders, the Shadow Mirrors, the Inspectors, and the Ainst. So they're fighting them all at pretty much the same time. So it has a lot more to it, and it's a lot less, they have more or less just random missions that don't really mean anything. So it's a lot,
Wow.
everything's a lot more meaningful in OG2 than it is in OG1. So they definitely need more episodes.
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm going to be collecting the TV show once the price goes down, and I'm right in the middle of playing OG1 on X-Root. So here's hoping Atlas or Bandai please release Original Generations on PS2 and Original Generation Gaiden, and maybe Endless Frontier on DS, please. I'd like to play them. Adam, Paul, any thoughts on OG? You guys looking forward to maybe playing some more games or checking out that anime?
It's a lot of stuff, I can say that much.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
Yes, it is. It is a lot of stuff.
I really have to hunt it down.
Yeah.
I did hear I do see a lot more Japanese imports coming through to the PS2, so there might be a good chance Atlas might bring it, or they're bringing Arcana Heart, so I'm assuming they probably will bring Original Generation on the PS2 sometime soon, hopefully.
So.
Here's hoping. Yeah.
So for now we have the GBA games, and so those are a great play.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they are great. They are definitely great. So I recommend that to anybody.
I would definitely hunt those down.
And of course, we'll be talking in the future about Alpha and the original classic timeline and all these other things. So we'll definitely be hitting up Super Robot Wars again in the near future. Again, I'd like to thank Peter for joining us for this segment and giving us his Super Robot Wars expertise. We'll be having him back to talk about some other shows as well as Super Robot Wars. And maybe we'll even talk about the mediocre Psybuster.
Or not.
Or not. So that's it for this segment, and we'll be right back on Gundam at MAHQ.
You think you're the best? I hope you are. A Gundam mobile suit is a fully articulated, fully equipped machine, armed with the most sophisticated weaponry known to man. To be a complete Gundam pilot, you must train on both Gundam systems. Believe me, gentlemen, to beat the best, you have to be the best.
Welcome back to the show with more game than Bob Barker. That's right, Gundam at MAHQ. And on this next segment, we are talking about we're gonna jump the gun a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say jump the gun, but we're gonna do something.
Jump the Gundam.
Jump the Gundam. That's right. And we're gonna compare our favorite franchise of sci-fi to two other favorite franchises of sci-fi around the world. One of them was probably the first franchise, and like Gundam, it was resurrected from cancellation, and that would be Star Trek. And then another one came about a decade later and just exploded onto the scene, and that's probably the one that's most regarded around fans around the world, and that's Star Wars. And we're actually going to run a comparison of all three franchises, what they have in common, what they have that differ from each other, and what our opinions are of each, and how they compare and contrast, and
also some of the influences that they've had on each other.
And exactly, and since both
cultural impact,
impact, and since Star Trek and Star Wars did both come before Mobile Suit Gundam, they have had impacts on Mobile Suit Gundam, and we're going to talk about some of the influences that both those series have had on Mobile Suit. For those fans of the other two franchises that have always been interested in Gundam, now's the time to actually get to find out a little bit of what they have in common and what they have different and what they all bring to the table. But I guess we'll start with the similarities first. And did either of you guys have any similarities to point out?
Well, they're both in space.
Oh, no.
They're all in space.
Well, it'd be kind of... It wouldn't work if none of them were in space.
Thank you, Captain Obvious, right?
Yeah, that should be your new name on the forum.
Yes.
Captain Obvious.
Instead of Hakim Endymion, Captain Obvious.
Captain Obvious.
I would say the most obvious similarities are, of course, with Star Trek and Gundam, is that the original series of both didn't do too well in the ratings, got canceled, did much better in reruns, and and created this large fan base, and then we're both resurrected with new productions and have lived on ever since then. Obviously with Gundam it was a much shorter turnaround time because the show was canceled in 1980 and went into reruns right away, and then the first of the movie trilogy came out in 1981 and inspired then by 85 you had Zeta, whereas with Star Trek, the show was almost canceled after its first season, lived on until its third, ended in 1969, and then in the late 70s you had that aborted attempt to create a Paramount network before the one in the 90s, which was going to have Star Trek Phase 2. That was going to be like continuing adventures of the Enterprise with some new characters and some old. And they actually got pretty far with that, and having they had 13 scripts done, they had sets built, and then they eventually canceled that in favor of doing Star Trek the Motion Picture. Some of the elements of that ended up in the show, some characters. I believe the script for Motion Picture started off as a script on this Star Trek Phase 2, and coincidentally 2 episodes from Star Trek Phase 2 were later recycled and rewritten a little bit for Next Generation.
Wow.
I was about to say.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of them was during the second season when they had the writer's strike in 1988 and they needed something, so they just took a script that was sitting there for 10 years and said, hey, let's cut out, search and replace Kirk and Picard, and here we have a Next Gen script.
Yeah. Oh.
And they did another one later on in the 4th season of Next Gen. But I would say that the other biggest similarity is that for the most part both of these franchises have been going strong for many, many decades. Star Trek, they just had their 40th anniversary back in 2006.
Yeah.
Wow.
And with Gundam, we'll be hitting up the 30th anniversary next year. So the big 3-0. So they're both very long-lived franchises, and of course, last year was the 30th anniversary of Star Wars.
Well, Chris, you sound like your Star Trek, man. Have you been unfaithful?
I used to be. I used to be very, very big into it, but the
Me too.
later entries in the series drove me away, namely Voyager and Enterprise.
I think that's how we both probably ended up segueing into Gundam, because our love for science fiction. Same for Neo. Neo, he won't outwardly admit it, but he pervades some Star Trek.
Well, no, I mean, to be honest with you, the only experiences of Star Trek that I really know is I know the original series, because as a kid I used to watch it on syndication, and I watched the first couple of movies. I never really watched the Next Generation because, to be honest with you, I don't even know when it came on, and when I watched it, I didn't really feel that it didn't really get me.
What do you call Captain Picard?
Captain Stubing, because it was the good ship. It was the good ship Enterprise. It was like a cruise ship, so he wasn't as swashbuckling as Captain Kirk.
Well, I'm sorry, he couldn't be Captain Sam Beckett.
Or Captain Sam Beckett. But another similarity that I think of those two shows, so getting back to our thing here, is
no love for Captain Sisko.
Who's Captain Sisko?
Oh, exactly.
From Deep Space Nine.
I love me and Captain Sisko.
That's the one in the space station.
The black captain.
Yeah.
Let's just say it.
Yeah, the black captain. We're gonna have a black captain, and we're just gonna give him a space station so he doesn't do anything. But
was a commander
Hey,
at
he
one
got a
time.
ship, and actually one time at a convention I met Avery Brooks, and he's a really cool guy. So
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he's cool.
and he's a great actor too. So he did a great job with that part. But anyway,
He has to be cool. He was a man named Hawk.
But
I'm sorry. Anyway.
But the other thing about, especially with Star Trek and Gundam, is the kind of the focus on technology that you always see, and there is kind of a lot of like the techno babble, even though
Yeah.
it seems like it can be a little bit more so in
Tachyon particles.
Star Trek. It seems like
Minovsky
sometimes
particles.
it's a little.
I think Star Trek does it a lot more though. I mean, it's like it's like
Yeah.
oh, we need to do an inverse tachyon phase induction pulse, and in Gundam it's more like Minovsky particle density is rising.
Yeah.
They keep it pretty simple in Gundam, whereas in Star Trek it's like, what sort of boondoggle piece of junk technology are we going to fabricate today for something episode?
Yeah, because you really like know how their engines work almost. If you watch like 5 episodes of Star Trek, it's like I think you could build one of those engines because of how much they talk about them.
We've got to crawl into Jeffrey's tubes and shut down the warp nacelle.
Oh boy. But I guess what are some other things you would say on some of the similarities? I guess kind of the iconic characters of all 3 franchises would be there.
Well, what about any similarities for
Star
Gundam
Trek
and
and
Star
Gundam, or
Wars.
Star Wars and Gundam.
Star Wars and Gundam?
To me, I think the biggest one is kind of the mysticism behind like the Jedi,
New types.
that Jedi thing, and then the new types.
The new types.
Yeah, that's the biggest like similarity that I see between them, because the Jedis can kind of feel everything, and they can feel other Jedis or people that use the Force, and
Right.
same thing with the new types. It's even though it's more like mythical and like more mysticism in Star Wars, it seems, because
Well, it was until they introduced the midi-chlorians and gunked that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. They kind of.
we try to forget those movies. Yeah, but
What about
other similarities between them? Between Star Wars and Gundam, the beam saber.
Yeah.
I would say.
Which one of course influenced the other, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that and some of the character types. I'd have to say, you find in Mobile Suit Gundam, I guess the characters are a bit more flawed than say in Star Wars, where they're a bit more laid out.
well, they're either good or evil. Even though
Yeah.
what's his face, Vader gets kind of.
Well,
You
it's
know.
it's Star Wars. I think they're more flawed too, because you got someone like Han Solo, who
Yeah.
he's a profiteer, but then he sort of still has a conscience and that heart of gold. Whereas in most Star Trek, for the most part, at least early on under Roddenberry, you had this unrealistic
Yeah.
view of humanity in the future is perfect and everybody's happy and gets along,
Very true.
Oh yeah.
which I really don't agree with. So I'm glad that in Deep Space Nine they went the opposite direction and had people who didn't get along, because number one, how can you have drama if everybody's all happy and getting together?
Which has always been one of my big things with Star Trek is, I mean, I guess if we wanted to kind of just go into like some of our things that maybe kind of we don't like or whatever, is your whole thing that you just said with Star Trek, that it always seemed like the Federation and the humans and everything that they were doing was perfect, and
Yeah.
like everybody should follow.
And
they
mankind-
would go to a planet, there'd be issues there, and they'd be like, well, you should be more like us.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to work to a resolution or whatever. So.
Mankind had freed itself of all its ills like money and greed and war and all of that in the same future time. And if you take Gundam 00, which takes place at the same daggone time as say Star Trek: The Next Generation, calendar wise, things haven't changed much. We live in a more of a futuristic society, but a lot of things are still the same. We still have the same problems. Mankind's a bit more united, but still divided in a lot of ways. And money still controls everything. The battle of resources is still there.
Yeah.
It's kind of unrealistic to think that, But then again, I think the difference between Star Trek and Gundam in that sense was aliens intervened in humanity, like the Vulcans showed up.
Yeah.
As opposed, there was no really big factor in Gundam where mankind was still left unchecked by anybody else.
That's always been that's the glaring difference between the 3 franchises. Is with Star Trek and Star Wars, you're always introduced to a colorful world of different aliens. I
Yeah.
mean, I swear to God, in Star Trek, it seems like they have, hundreds of different types of aliens. Star Wars, it's like, wow, there's like thousands of different types of aliens.
That's really what enriches that universe.
And Gundam, there's really no talk, except if you talk about that the winged,
winged
whale
whale.
in
Space whale from Seed.
yeah, Space Whale and Seed. So, Space Willie. But, that's the only real talk. And they don't really go outside of, the other one would be, too, is in Star Wars and Star Trek, they travel, like, all over the galaxy.
Yeah.
Gundam, what's the furthest point they've gone is what, Jupiter?
Jupiter, yeah.
So, I mean,
And we just
most
discovered
everything is earthbound or around the space of Earth, so...
Personally, I think, although it's not part of this topic of discussion, I think thematically, Gundam probably has more in common with Babylon 5. Whereas even though Babylon 5 has aliens, the scope is more limited, and you have humanity... technologically, they're the weakest of all the major powers, and they're still pretty divided from their most recent history of warfare between themselves. And a lot of the people in Babylon 5 are pretty nasty, and they're not like the nicest people. So a lot of them are corrupt, and you have sort of like
sounds like Gundam.
Yeah. So I think thematically, there's a lot more similarity between Babylon 5 and Gundam as far as like these big interstellar franchises with aliens go, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I've never really watched that show, so I couldn't really comment on it one way or the other. But that does sound kind of interesting. And I know that show's got a huge following, and some of the things I heard about, it's quite interesting. But
that's true.
But any other kind of differences or any other things that we might want to?
Well, a huge difference between this is Star Trek and Star Wars combined versus Gundam is that Gundam is the only show out of the three that features mobile suits. You have that. You have fantastic technology in all three series.
Yeah.
Star Wars has the least explanation behind their technology than the other two, but that's perfectly fine. It kind of fits the genre.
Well, it takes place in a galaxy far away. So.
And it also brings up the point that Star Wars takes place in the past, while Star Trek and Gundam take place in the future. Although
Star Wars is in the past.
A long time ago.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I forgot that part of the opening montage.
But it's that's another one of the differences. I can talk about the differences of the fan bases.
Well, back to the technology though, real quick. Yeah. I think the one thing that Gundam has outside of even like what you just said earlier with Star Trek is around the same time as Mobile Suit 00.
Yeah.
If you look at them though, if you look at it in today's world, what seems more feasible if you kind of gauge how technology progresses. Mobile Suit 00 looks a little bit more where we're gonna have these fantastic things. We're gonna have mobile suits. We're gonna have these space elevators and all these cool technology. But the cities are still gonna look pretty similar. It's even though it's like 300 years in the future, the cities look pretty similar. Most of the vehicles, normal vehicles look kind of similar. So I guess that is what makes that kind of endearing to people is that it's like this is what could happen. It's that one aspect of technology progressed, not all aspects.
Not all aspects.
Like I remember watching stuff in like Star Trek where like when especially like one of the movies where they go to San Francisco, it doesn't even look like San Francisco. They still got like the bridge, the Golden Gate, and the Bay Bridge and all that, but they're showing like these futuristic looking buildings, and it's. I know that's the thing that they're trying to achieve, but I think the technology seems more feasible and more. Yeah.
A little too futuristic. I agree. Gundam, granted these are all science fiction, so
right.
I say realistic loosely and in quotes, but Gundam is more realistic in that a space colony is something that's possible.
Yeah.
A space elevator is possible. The ships they all move very slowly, and it takes years to get to Jupiter and back.
Yeah.
You don't have starships that are bending the space-time continuum. And,
exactly.
Big giant lasers and quantum torpedoes and transporters and replicators and all this other wacky stuff that really just is out of the realm of possibility within the time it's supposed to take place in.
Yeah.
And to give the technology presented in Gundam some credit, outside of the mobile suits, a lot of it is actually feasible and built on scientific theory. And it's been really thought out, and the effects of it, like the O'Neill cylinders that people live in, and
the mass drivers,
and just a lot of things that presented in Gundam, have been drawn up to as alternatives of living in space. That when one day we can actually get that technology affordable and create it, maybe one day that's exactly what people will be living in.
Well, I'd have to say too. I mean, even the mobile suits to an extent. I'm sure that the mobile suits are, our government or military has talked about, not in the way that the Gundam is, but more or less like like the powered armors from Starship Troopers and stuff like that, and even to the extent on a smaller scale,
like
so
Botones or something.
I would think at least that the most realistic is like the petite mobile suits like you see in Zeta, which basically are worker units. So if you have a space station or a lunar development or a space colony development having a small, basically powered armor like that's used as a worker unit is probably more realistic than say a giant fighting robot. But
I guess that would be kind of in on like some of the differences and stuff.
There are a few of the differences.
What's that?
The fact that Mobile Suit Gundam out of all the series has the most on-screen time. With different, pretty much has the most material on video than the other two. I think combined, if you were to look at it, if you were to collect how many hours of Gundam that's available on video, as opposed to...
I don't know about that because...
you don't think so?
Most of the Star Trek shows are pretty long, and mind you, they're an hour. Episodes are an hour, so...
Yeah.
That is true. I'm probably talking about behind.
I'd probably say that if you're thinking of like how in the scope of how big these franchises are, I think me personally, I think that probably the Star Trek has probably got the biggest amount of material, because
you think so?
I was reading a thing that there's like tons of books too on the Star Trek.
There's tons of books and comics and
well when it
and I mean I know there's a lot for Star Wars too, but I was reading this thing that I was talking about this before we were talking about to kind of prep on some of this, because I don't know about all these shows and all that, but I didn't realize the plethora of books that there are. And what was amazing is one of the biggest one of the most popular writers is actually Captain Kirk himself.
William Shatner.
I thought that was kind of interesting too, where
well, that's if assume that he actually wrote them, because he always has like a pair of co-writers, and there's a lot of allegations that they're just ghost writers for him.
Yeah, they just put his, and he's just there to sell the book. His name's
Kirk.
to sell the book.
He's just there to sell the book with his name and his face plastered on it. One thing I like to point out is in terms of the overall longevity of the franchises,
right?
And in terms of the way they've been managed, I think Gundam, over the course of its lifespan, has been managed better than either Star Trek or Star Wars, because with Star Wars, everything was great, for the original trilogy, but then George Lucas amassed piles of monies, and he financed the prequel trilogy out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Movies were not financed by Fox.
Wow.
Fox just distributes it and puts out the DVDs, but all three of those movies were made by him, and I give him credit, he made them for about $100 million a pop or something. So he makes these big movies for even less than the big studios do. But because of that, if you notice, he directed all three of the prequels.
Sadly.
He
Sadly?
wrote all of them.
Oh, horribly.
So, unfortunately, in the case of Star Wars, there's nobody who George Lucas hands in his script to, and they say, "Hey, George, this is a piece of crap. I want you to change this."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No checks and balances established by the studio, in between studio and writer.
There's no checks and balances because he's the final word.
Yeah.
So, that's how we end up with Jar Jar Binks and all those other disgraceful moments from the prequel trilogy.
Pod racing. And we're going to throw the second most powerful Jedi out the window.
Yeah. Poor me.
Sorry.
Oh, Sam.
But, I agree with you on that, because I think a way to kind of allude to that is Gundam, I think with Gundam, if you're going to be a director or a writer, you're not locked in necessarily always with what the Gundam standard is. I think there's standards for all of them, and Gundam has a standard. I mean, there's always going to be a Gundam mobile suit. Yeah. There's always going to be specific things, but each little thing of each show or each movie has always been a little bit different. Yeah, and they take a different take.
Yeah, potentially.
There's a lot more freedom.
Each show is as good as its staff, because similarly with Star Trek for a long time, after Gene Roddenberry died, you had Rick Berman in control, and he really flushed the franchise down the tubes.
He did
with Voyager and Enterprise, and pretty much killed it through. So, there's really not much room for, creativity. Like, at the time, he focused his attention on Voyager and ignored DS9. So the DS9 people were able to do whatever they wanted because he wasn't watching over them. But then Voyager was very mediocre. Enterprise was more mediocre. And, that really just killed the franchise. So, now thankfully...
Which is sad because I think the Enterprise show could have been better because it had a great concept. I mean...
It had a good concept, but...
You got a prequel. They recycled a lot of stories, too, it seemed.
Here's my two main beefs with Enterprise in regards to this aspect.
Right.
One, it's mostly the same staff that was behind Voyager.
Right.
So if Voyager ends and it was a very poor show, and then you have the exact same team moving on to the new show, why would you expect it to be any different?
Yeah.
And then number two, you had at the beginning Enterprise recycling all these concepts like, we got the Borg, but this is the first time that they met, and we got the ring, but this is the first time that it happened.
Yeah.
And there's a transporter thing, but it's the first time that it happened.
Yeah.
It makes for a lot of at least a lot of inconsistency later on, knowing
a lot of inconsistency. So, you had
Jeez.
Star Trek under the boot of Rick Berman for a long time, and now thankfully he's gone, and you've got the new movie with J.J. Abrams. So
now I know Neo, you don't care too much for J.J. Abrams.
No, he's horrible.
But you
Not
saw, you saw
horrible,
the trailer
but-
for the new Star Trek.
Well, that doesn't mean they can't do something good. I mean,
What if they reinvent the
I'm
franchise?
not a
to
big
be
fan
more-
of Star Wars,
What-
but I'm a great fan of Empire Strikes Back.
Well, there
But-
you go. There you
But
go.
no, I'm actually I like the look of that one because it looks like it's going to be. But it was only it was just showing the Enterprise there in the dockyard, so it's not too. I haven't seen anything else.
San Fran.
But I'm kind of interested in seeing it though.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, you have to wait until May 2009 because it got pushed back from Christmas.
Yeah.
So
it sure did.
with Gundam, each show has a different staff usually, so the show is as good as that staff.
Yeah.
Like, so, Seed, in my opinion, is all right. Destiny, worse.
Yeah.
But then you got Double O with a different team, and they've been putting out a solid show so far. So with Gundam, basically, if one show's a screw up, you have the opportunity to fix it in the next show with a new staff and a new concept. With Star Trek, you really don't.
And the other thing too is Gundam never locked themselves into that same universe. They didn't have a problem with deviating as saying, you know what, we're going to keep the Gundam aspects of a show, but we're going to show it in a different way, in a different time period and all that. Where Star Trek, it's like it's one big continuous thing, and along with Star Wars, the same thing. I mean, it's one big continuous thing of
it's always the same thing in Star Trek. It's always a show about the Federation.
That's true.
And either on a starship or the one time on DS9 where they had a space station.
Yeah.
So it's always the same perspective of the Federation, who usually are the good guys. You never get to see anything from another perspective.
Yeah.
So
and that's the other
Gundam at least varies that.
I'm sorry. That was the other thing too, that Gundam also makes the line between good and evil a lot more fuzzier than Star Wars and Star Trek. And the biggest example of that is, Zeta Gundam, where, all of a sudden now the guy that was the main baddie in the first show is now, he's put as the hero.
And if you were to compare, say, Star Trek to Gundam and Star Wars to Gundam, you could say that the original Gundam is more like Star Trek, while Zeta Gundam is more like Star Wars, because the lines between good and evil were a lot more finite in Zeta Gundam than they were in Gundam, where you kind of got to sympathize with both sides. Like the Klingons, they were shown as kind of like the aggressors in the original Star Trek, but there were some episodes where actually they were cool.
Yeah.
And
but it wasn't really until the Next Generation that they were more humanized.
That is true. That is true.
There's basically in the original series they're just a bunch of screaming, war-hungry maniacs. But it wasn't until Next Generation, the fact that they added Worf into the mix, they really humanized them. And then DS9 did a lot more with the Klingons too. So it took the entries from like 20 years later to really flesh out that race more. And as a consequence, they're probably the most fleshed out race in that entire franchise.
That's true.
And even though Zeta
probably more so the Vulcans, right?
Yeah. Though Zeta's a bit more black and white because it's obvious, the AUG is good and the Titans are bad. The fact is that you had that role reversal of, the Federation was the good guys in the original series, and now they're corrupt and they're basically the bad guys in Zeta. So yeah, it is a pretty clear line of black and white, but it's a role reversal that leads to that black and white.
And you had a lot more people, with the switching of sides too. You had a lot more in that, with people being torn between, their old thoughts or their old beliefs and in this newer world. So that was always kind of interesting to me too. That's what makes, that's what I find the most entertaining and the most fascinating about the Gundam universes is that where
you had character development and they weren't kind of stuck in the same kind of positions every episode. That's the main difference between the three, I think, because Star Wars is a continuing saga.
Well, Star Wars has a flip, but it's just one person.
He is really a one person.
It's Darth Vader.
Star Trek is like, okay, new scenario, but we're gonna end up all fine at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And then and then Gundam, you don't know what the heck is gonna happen. You don't know who's gonna die, who's gonna live, save for maybe a few characters who carry the show, and even then, nothing's sacred.
Yeah.
So that's a bit. But I actually wanted to get into something having to do with characters and their development.
Sure.
And there's three iconic characters I think each series has. Gundam, of course, is Char Aznable, wherein the Gundam, he was kind of an antagonist, but at the same time, you could relate to his struggle. Zeta Gundam, he kind of, downplays himself purposely, and he switches sides. And I kind of can, even though I don't want to, I kind of compare him in some ways to Darth Vader from Star Wars, because his character goes through development, although we find out about it in reverse from how the movies were introduced. And both those series, those are their most iconic characters because of their character development of each one of those characters.
Right.
And I just want to know you guys' thoughts on that as well, and if they compare and contrast, or if one outclasses the other.
Well, I think that's a pretty good comparison because here Char is. He's Castle, and his family gets killed, and people that were behind it come in power on the name of his father and all that, and he goes and he fights for them, but under the guise of killing them, and then he realizes that they don't that side was flawed, and he goes over to the Federation. The same thing with Darth Vader. I mean, it's a little bit different thing because it's he goes from good to evil, but they have the same thing of how incidences of what people that they love made a change and made them become something they weren't. Castle Daikun became Char Aznable because his parents were killed, or his father was killed. What's her face in what's the girl's name in Star Wars? Padme.
Amidala.
Yeah.
Padme.
He's having these things that she's going to get killed, and then he becomes Darth Vader. So that's I feel it's a fair comparison, not complete, but I can see the similarities in some of the struggles. Chris?
Personally, yeah. I think it's pretty similar comparison. Although that Anakin Skywalker spent as a protagonist, he was an emo whiner and really not likable at all.
No.
And I hate you. I don't blame Hayden Christensen for that. I just blame George Lucas's crappy writing.
Oh yeah, you got to.
With the line delivery of Oak.
God. Yeah. But I want to be a powerful Jedi too. Obi-Wan's holding me back. And then even the whole thing about his descent into evil and Darth Vader, I think it was probably better left in the original trilogy when you didn't know what it was. He just became evil, because when they actually showed what it was, of Palpatine saying hey, your hot wife could die someday. You need to learn these dark arts. It's like it's not like she was dying. He was just saying someday she could.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, guess I better turn evil so that I can save my wife.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it didn't
make any sense at all. It was sort of better when that's a case where less is more.
Less is more.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I agree with you there.
And then of course, like you put in the notes, it's Star Trek. You've got iconic characters. You put in the notes Spock, but obviously you could just as easily also be Kirk, because they're both the most well-known characters from that franchise.
That's what Neil was saying to me too. He what were you saying about Kirk?
Well, the thing about Captain Kirk that makes him, what I like about him being the best captain is like he in the world of perfection, he sometimes did things because he wanted to. I mean, I remember in the second movie, he was the only guy that beat that simulation because he cheated. He always did what needed to be done to get his to achieve his goal or whatever. I mean, and that was against with what they were always talking about in the Federation, because it was always like, this is for the good of humanity. Captain Kirk did whatever he wanted just to save his people or save his friends.
That's true.
So I mean,
He was a maverick.
yeah, and I mean, and Mr. Spock is, and he's an interesting thing, because Mr. Spock always had the two sides of him that were pulling at him. And you'd always see, especially like in some of the movies, towards the end, he became more human than he was actually a Vulcan, because he learned to accept of who he was.
Yeah,
And
by the time he shows up in Next Gen, he's almost. I
he
would
was
say
the Next Generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
So, I didn't know that.
He was cool in the Next Generation. He was a lot less. He was a lot more emotionally driven in that series.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the few appearances that he had, you could see that he went through some serious changes, which would be interesting, because when the new movie comes out, you'll get to see him as a much older man.
He's in it.
And he's kind of reflecting back, at least as far as we know, reflecting back on how it all started. So that'd be very interesting to see. But
and the thing of like iconic characters, what do you think is like the most like iconic thing of each one of these franchises? Like, if there's one thing that you look at and you say that's Star Wars, or
the first thing that comes to mind,
yeah,
Stormtrooper.
yeah, I would say lightsaber.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, I would say the Enterprise. I mean, if you see
Star Trek.
you see the Enterprise as Star Trek, and
Yep.
of course with Gundam,
It's the ARC-78. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that it's shown up so many times. I mean, how many times has that suit been redesigned?
Oh yeah, there's always a suit in every series that's very
throwback.
similar to the RX-78. You can go through every one of those shows.
You'll see one. That's
Yeah, and if you've seen, in every series, the hero's Gundam always has those same base colors of like red, white, and blue
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
with a bit of yellow. And there's never been
Yeah, it always seems like some combination of white and blue with either yellow or red accents.
the new is sort of like white and black. But as far as the TV shows go, the main character's Gundam always has that white, blue, and red. And another thing that I want to talk about, what do you guys think of the overall cultural impact of each of those shows? Because obviously there has been one.
Well, I mean, the Star Wars one's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Star Wars is probably globally the most recognizable of the three franchises.
Even
For
in
good or
Japan?
bad, it is.
I think that's debatable.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
I mean, Star Trek, first of all, has a 10-year lead on it
That's
Yeah.
true.
in terms of building up a fan base. And, both franchises have been exposed in countless languages all around the world. So it's probably more toe-to-toe between the two.
Really?
I mean, you're never going to find anybody who's going to definitively say it's one or the other, because obviously there are people who like one and not the other. But I think they're both pretty close.
Well, the only reason why I would say I would give the edge to Star Wars,
It's because it has a bigger
as
audience. I think.
flawed as George Lucas is,
Yeah.
in his writing, his directing, and all that, he's a hell of a marketer.
That is true.
And I think that of the three series or the three franchises, Star Wars had the best marketing, because I mean Star Wars was everywhere, and I remember when the three prequel movies came out, a couple years ago. The marketing machine was there again. I mean, they had the toys at Burger King and all this
Exactly.
other stuff. I mean,
Yes.
On top of that, it's the only show that was only one of the three to hit the ground running and hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
yeah.
And in a lot of ways. I mean, the other two had setbacks and then brought back, and now they've been consistent ever since. But Star Wars, when it came out in '77, it was a box office smash. And, you find more casual fans of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And you see more Star Wars references in anything. Like, even in regular, like in other shows and whatnot, there's more references to Star Wars than anything else I've ever seen.
And the other thing is even after the two horrible prequel movies,
Yeah.
everybody went to go see. As much as I went to go see Star Wars 3. So it's like I went to go see that, and it was just, you get caught up in it.
Yeah,
and you're right though. It never seemed like that franchise got the kind of the fatigue that Gundam experienced fatigue with Gundam X, and of course Star Trek I think has gotten it with the last two shows.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Well, I would point out this. Number one, Star Trek's marketing sucks, so that is definitely true.
Yeah.
I mean, they just can't market. Whenever they had these movies come out, especially the recent ones, hardly any marketing. They're not building up demand or anticipation. Number two, as far as references, yeah, you do see a lot more Star Wars references and everything, but that's because I think for the most part with the general public, Star Wars is more accepted, and Star Trek fans have always been, sort of classified as like super geeky, like, Simpsons comic book guy.
Kind of geeky.
Which there are plenty who are, and thankfully I never was one of those. But I think they sort of get, short shrift there from, the general public of, oh, you like Star Trek, you're some uber nerd loser who lives in your mom's basement and you're like 40 years old and you're a virgin. So, which I personally know some people who do fit into that category.
Yeah, it's
suffice it to say, but
dang it.
yeah, like some of these guys who like they're part of these like stormtrooper squadrons.
But I'm sure you can find the Star Wars people that are the same way. They just hide them better.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean,
like I said, I won't naysay any of them because we all got the things we're into. I mean, whether it be these franchises or anything else. So those guys, I mean, they're just really into that. If I could look good in Gundam cosplay, I might do it. But you'd have to pay me.
I'll gladly take donations too. You can send them to my PayPal account.
Right on.
Yes. Give you the number now. But yeah, I mean, culturally, and I mean, if we go by Japan, I mean, Japan's definitely been influenced.
That's
every
where
time
it's
we read
completely
stuff in
flipped.
the news or whatever in Japan, I mean, Gundam is just, it seems like it actually permeates their culture a lot more than even Star Wars.
Oh, of course.
And Star Trek does here.
I'd say Asia would be the big exception to the popularity paradigm shift, where it's Gundam as opposed to the other two, which are watched and probably followed, but not as heavily as Mobile Suit Gundam in its franchise.
Definitely.
Yeah. But
yeah, one thing I wanted to note though, you said about how Star Wars had momentum from the ground up.
Yeah.
And that is true up until the first trilogy ended, because
that's true.
I grew up in the 80s, and after Return of the Jedi came out, Star Wars just kind of disappeared from the landscape.
That is true.
Yeah, you had some stuff like that cool Droids cartoon, and you had those Ewok movies, but it wasn't until, and I recall, when they announced the prequel trilogy, and way back like in 1995 when they re-released the 3 movies on videotape, the THX remastered versions.
Yeah.
That's when Star Wars really started to pick up again.
But
so for like a good almost 10 years or so, it was really just sort of like very low key, and it wasn't Star Wars. Ever since that point on, it's been like in the public consciousness a lot more, whereas through the mid to late 80s and early 90s, it just kind of was,
that's true.
Something that happened.
That is kind of true. And
so they sort of had that same period of dormancy, not for any bad reason, because
it was purposely done.
It's not like I got canceled. It's just that
Yeah.
it was done. George Lucas moved on to do other things, and then came back to it. So it had its own period of dormancy for different reasons than Star Trek, but it's definitely there.
You raise a really good point. Last but not least, I wanted to just really touch upon the influence of the other 2 series that had on Mobile Suit Gundam. But before we do that, I'd like to just quickly touch upon the creators and just take, for instance, Gene Roddenberry, of course. He's no longer with us. But he kind of started the whole thing when it comes to Star Trek, and he at least was able to bring it back with the Next Generation. I mean, that's an example of a spinoff right there. Gundam, of course, has his own spinoff, which was Zeta Gundam, which was headed by Tomino, amongst other sequels as well. And then last but not least, you have Lucas, who of course did the following 3 movies first, and then went back to do the prequels. And there was a different feeling between the 2 series, and what were you guys' thoughts on the creators, and then we'll go into the influences also that those series have had on Mobile Suit. But
well, I mean,
we've already gone over Tomino.
I don't know too much about like Gene Roddenberry. Is that the only thing he ever really did was Star Trek?
He tried to do other things, but they just never really.
And George,
he did a lot of stuff before Star Trek.
That he did westerns and whatnot too.
And George Lucas has had his hand obviously in a lot of things like Indiana Jones and
right.
other things.
Willow.
What I think is interesting is, you mean The Hobbit, the movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting in that Gene Roddenberry and Tomino are pretty similar in respects that they both created these huge multi-billion-dollar franchises that they really don't have control of, because Star Trek was created by Desilu Productions, which later became part of Paramount, which later became part of Viacom. Then you got Gundam, by Sunrise, which later became part of Bandai. So you have these two mega corporations controlling the franchise and, taking it in very different directions from what the original creators did. So I think that's interesting, because Lucas, like I said, at first, he had to fight to get Star Wars made, but then became a mega success, and then he turned it into his own personal empire.
Yeah, that's true.
That he funds and that he benefits from. So.
And he's really the only one with complete control over his own franchise as opposed to the other two.
But what's sad though,
which is a good and bad.
Yeah.
How far you take it.
That's what I was gonna say, which is ironic because you always want creative control, but his creative control to an extent seems like it's diminished that series. It's diminished that franchise a lot because those last 3 movies were flat out doo-doo. And I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't care how big of a Star Wars fan you are and how much blinders you have. You can't tell me that those last 3 movies, especially that last movie, I mean, come on. But that's a different topic for a different day. But I think with Star Trek and Gundam, because they are corporately owned, the ability to have other people chime in on certain things has helped them, and helped them be as large and catalogs of work and everything that they have. So.
That's true.
And almost seems like because of that, they encourage the differences. Where with George Lucas, it's probably, pay me a fee so I can, use my Star Wars name or something like that.
Very heavy-handed with his influence. Anything you guys can think of that Mobile Suit Gundam has those other 2 series to thank? When it comes to influences on the original series, at least for Mobile Suit Gundam?
Well, visually, like we were talking about, the lightsaber and the beam saber. Or as I mentioned to you, the Musai being an upside down Enterprise.
Very much so. I had until you brought that up, I never realized that, and it's like, oh my goodness. I mean, Chris is right. It is an upside down Enterprise. Holy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll never look at it the same.
It's hard to say because Gundam's not even a tenth of what Star Trek or Star Wars is here in the States.
Yeah.
It would be kind of interesting to see, to answer that question if Gundam, was receiving a lot more popularity, or even a couple years ago when there was a buzz with Gundam Wing and all that. Yeah. So it's hard to say. I think in terms of, the world of science fiction, Gundam, from what I'm reading and all that, is finally starting to be accepted in terms of like a Star Wars and a Star Trek as being visionary and long-lasting and enduring and all that.
It's growing little by little, and it'd be interesting to see where
it's difficult to really gauge them all at this point.
It'd be nice to see where Gundam will be 10 years from now worldwide, from the perspective, how people see it and where its fan base will be, his worldwide fan base will be 10 years from now.
I'll offer this as a closing thought, nugget of something to think about.
Go for it.
Star Wars and Star Trek obviously were very influential in terms of science fiction and getting science fiction out there, but Gundam, I think, to its credit, while they added to the science fiction genre, science fiction was already there. Gundam went and created a whole new genre in anime with the real robot, because the real robot simply would not have ever happened if Gundam hadn't come around. So
very much so. That's true.
And I'd give Gundam,
or it could have happened, but in
a different way or much later on. So Gundam was in the right place at the right time to create a whole new genre that is still around to this day. So I think it deserves all the props in the world for doing that.
That it does.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And any closing thoughts, Neil?
I like I said, of the 3, Gundam I have the more connection with Gundam. I think because of the close ties to the real world and all that, and the interesting characters. It's not saying that I don't dislike the other 2, but I think in a way, if I was never exposed to Gundam, I'd probably be into either one of them. But it was just the ability of going and experiencing what the Gundam shows have is, that's what makes it, enjoyable for me. And I hope with, the new things at Bandai and Namco, there's a new effort, and with 00, hopefully whenever they bring it over to the States, they do a better job of trying to integrate it into the fabric of American society, because it is different. And I mean, with cases of a lot of different things, it's a slow burn sometimes.
That's
you
true.
just got to keep going at it. So
Well, that has been our take on comparison to the 3 series. If you want to definitely wax more about that, you always go to mechatalk.net, where you'll find the thread for this and the other segments we've done today up there. And we will be back.
I'm sure this will be the largest forum posting we'll have to date in the Gundam section.
We're going to get an
on Mecha
S-storm,
Talk.
and I can't wait.
Oh, God.
But no, we encourage it. You guys, please bring your comments, because we want to hear your thoughts on this too, because this is something that everybody who is, has an opinion on. So
Well, I will brace myself. Again, you guys are listening to Gundam at MAHQ.
Get busy living or get busy dying. That's damn right.
Welcome back to Gundam at MHQ. As usual, we're going to be wrapping up the show at this time. So today we took a look at Super Robot Wars Original Generation, talking a bit about Divine Wars, about the OAB series, and about the various games. So I'd like to personally thank Peter for coming aboard and talking about that. And you'll be seeing him again in the future to talk about some other series that he's reviewed. And we also...
Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
We also took a look at Gundam, Star Trek, and Star Wars, looking at how they were similar, how they were different, how they had a cultural impact, and how they've, been around for multiple decades. And lastly, just a reminder that we'll be at MegaCon having a live recording of Gundam. That'll be our next episode.
Yes, indeed.
So if you're going to be in Orlando, come check us out, ask some questions, get on the podcast, and...
What were the dates on that again? Sorry.
That's Sunday, March 9th. The convention is from the 7th to the 9th. We'll
Right,
be
exactly.
on at 11 a.m. That's Sunday. So we'll be posting the details on MHQ.net regarding what room it'll be in and some more details about what we'll be talking about. But I definitely want to encourage people to come out. We'd love to
Yes,
meet the fans who listen to us.
definitely.
If you're in the Wang State.
The Wang State, America's.
Yeah.
I speaking of the fans, I'd like to thank 3 of them. One of them actually assisted with this episode, as well as my man, the number 1 hoser, Peter Laliberte. Thank you. Dr. Encyclopedia Black, one of our fellow members of Shinjuku Station, helped us with the Battle Royale between Star Trek, Star Wars, and Gundam. I'd like to thank him. He's got a new show coming out, the Weekly Cocktail. There'll be more details about that, but it's another one of our podcasts with Shinjuku Station. I also like to thank Hotimus Prime. He's been sent email to the Gundam
sorry.
website on MySpace. He also was looking forward to the Super Robot Wars segment. So again, Peter, we thank you for that, and Hotimus Prime thanks you too. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Advent Sugar. She's all the way over in she's one of our female listeners, and she's over in San Diego.
Whoa, wait.
What?
Female listener?
We have one. Oh my God. She's actually been spreading the word about the show. She every time we put up a bulletin on MySpace, she echoes it, and a lot of her friends actually have been tuning in. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from them too. And she's in the running to be GeForce Gamer Girl. So if you guys can vote for her, you'll find a link on the Gundam on one of the blogs that on our MySpace page. So
Wow.
hit her up with some love, just like she's been showing Gundam some love. So we thank you, Advent Sugar, and the rest of everybody that posts us up to the boards. Thank you very much.
And keep posting.
Paul, any thanks?
Well, I thank our Lord Jesus Christ for giving me the ability to be here today. And no, actually, no.
I'd like to thank the Academy and all the other nominees.
Yes, that too. No, I just would like to thank all the people that are continuing to listen and all the people that are continuing to post on the forums and keep it up. I've been trying to be on there at least once every day. So I mean,
I need to post more.
You guys keep your comments and your suggestions coming, and I just want to let all these guys know too. I know that we get a lot of stuff on the suggestions page, and don't think that we're not writing a lot of this stuff down. We actually have a document where there's quite a bit of listener suggestions. It's just we're trying to break everything up. So if you don't hear one of your suggestions coming up, one of your topics coming up, don't fret. It may be down the pike, but if you have any other ones, please please keep them coming, because a lot of them have been very good. So and we use quite a few of them for a lot of these segments. But
daggone right.
That's
Great.
Yes.
And last bit of news, since we haven't mentioned in the podcast, and we should have mentioned at the beginning, soon the podcast will have a new home other than the MAHQ features section. Solbro registered Gundamn.net a while back, and pretty soon there'll be an actual site to visit along with that URL. So be watching for more news on that in the future. We're going to have detailed show notes there. We're going to have a blog where we'll talk about topics from the show and our thoughts, maybe afterthoughts about things after we hear some fan feedback.
Yeah.
And relating to that, I'd like to thank my friend Damian Fuentes. He's a very talented graphic designer. He created the MAHQ logo that you see on Mecha Talk.
Yes, indeed.
He also created a similar logo for Gundam that you will soon be seeing on Gundam.net. So my props to him for doing that work for us.
Thank you, Damian. You and your badass name. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay. And on behalf of Saji Crossroad, I'll be signing out for everyone here, and we'll see you in Orlando on March 9th for episode 11. We look forward to, the terrible teens of Gundam.
See you live.
Live.
See you later.
I am and always have been a man alone.
Gundam
at MAHQ is a
Shinjuku station
and MAHQ production.
I opened up a can of whoop ass.